guys, Standing Simmer here today, and welcome back to the channel for another speed build here in The Sims 4. So guys, this is a very special video because it is the 1K Q&A video that I promised you guys last week during the last speed build that I put on the channel. So the last speed build, in case you missed it, which by now, I mean, like, you know, there's no time to submit another question because this is the video where I'll be answering those questions. But I asked you guys for questions in last week's speed build and was like, hey, we hit 1K on the channel. You guys want to ask me some questions? I'm here to answer them right now. That's kind of the special thing about this video. So in addition to answering your questions, I decided to do that voiceover over a speed build because that way you guys have something to watch in addition to just listening to me rambling about these questions that you guys had for me. I'm kind of nervous for some reason just to answer these questions, only because I only like half looked at them as the comments came through. I've not really looked at them again to, you know, fully formulate an answer. There's no telling what kind of rambling I'll be doing in this video. Also, just a disclaimer right off the bat, I'm definitely gonna be like just massively butchering some people's usernames. That's just like a given. I mean, it might not happen that crazy, but it might happen. That's very likely, actually. And so just a heads up there, sorry in advance. One other thing I'd like to say before we kind of get going is I'd like to actually tell you what we're doing today as far as the speed build goes. My plan is to kind of give you a little bit of just a rundown on what we're doing, again, with regard to the speed build, then go into answering the questions, and then I imagine that there'll be a little bit of time left over at the end, unless I do just get super rambly, that I'll be able to kind of catch you guys back up to what we're doing in the speed build itself. So I wanted to build something in a world other than Strange Town, because typically after a new pack comes out, I'm excited to first build in the new world with the new items, and then take the new items to other worlds. So building in Willow Creek, one of my current households actually needed a new place to live, and I've really been craving to live in Willow Creek here recently for some reason. I've lived in a lot of the other worlds with my current households recently, namely Oasis Springs, Strangerville. I keep doing that, guys. Strangerville and Oasis Springs are pretty common ones that I tend to live in with my Sims. Brittleton Bay on occasion, although it's been a while since I've lived over there as well. But it's been a hot second since I've lived in Willow Creek with some of my Sim families, and I really just want to experience like the seasons in their most optimal, kind of natural to me state. So, you know, when you live with your Sims over in Oasis Springs and now the new world Strangerville, you really don't get clear-cut seasons. Like, it's kind of always sunny. It might be a little cool sometimes, but there's not really a clear division between the seasons. So I wanted my Sims to live in a place where they're actually going to get a lot of snow, for example. So that's the reason that I decided to move them over this direction. And they have a little bit of a larger family, so I definitely needed quite a few bedrooms. In fact, this house in particular ends up having 3 bedrooms, and I think technically 3 furnished bathrooms, but then there's another room that's a laundry room off the kitchen that if you wanted to, like, say, stack the washer and dryer, you could put in a toilet there too and call it a half bath. So potentially up to 4 bathrooms and 3 total bedrooms. In the bedrooms themselves, there is 1 double bed in one double bed in another, and then 2 single beds in the other of the bedrooms. So up to 6 Sims could live in this house right off the bat, and that's about the population that I was planning this house for when it comes to a family. I really like building in this style. I think that, especially considering this lot is the lot that the Ophelia Villa was on. Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called? I don't even know. The house that the Goth family lives in when you first load up the base game. That is where that's this lot. That's the same lot that I'm building on right now. And so obviously that original lot has a lot of like a Victorian style. And this is also, fun fact, the same lot of the very first speed build I ever uploaded to the channel was built on this particular lot, and I've not really built on it since. In fact, I'm like almost 100% positive I've not built on it since. And so this is kind of like a fun little throwback in a lot of ways, and I'm excited to be sharing this with you guys. I wanted to build in kind of that like quasi-traditional Victorian style with, you know, like a modern twist or two here and there. I didn't want it to be like totally traditional and kind of old fogey because the family that's living here is actually relatively young. And so that is a little bit of a rundown just quickly on the build. We do a lot of the exterior, move to the furnishing on the interior, and then come back out to the exterior to finish off the landscaping, and that's kind of like the basic layout of the video. And guys, I've already spent like almost 5 minutes here at the beginning just rambling, so let's go ahead and get into the quick Q&A part of this video that I promised you guys to begin with. So I was pulling questions from both YouTube, again from the video that I posted last week, as well as Tumblr. I have a question that did come through on Tumblr in my ask box, and so I'll be answering that a little bit later on if I remember to go back over to that tab. But for right now, I'm going to be starting with the comments on the YouTube video that I put out last week. First of all, thank you guys so much for all the lovely comments you left just in general, just of congratulations and just the nice things that you said about the speed build and things like that. I don't really get the chance to just overtly thank you guys about that enough, and so I'm going to take the time right now to do so. But the first question that I'm going to read off today came from Leonie B, and in addition to a couple other really sweet things that they said, what eventually convinced you to do YouTube videos instead of just playing The Sims? So this has a bit of a longer answer because there was a long period of time there that I imagined myself uploading videos to YouTube. I actually had my username picked out for a very long time before I ever actually made the jump to creating the YouTube channel and to uploading my first ever video, which was in March of last year, so March 2018. Yeah, I just decided that what initially made me take the jump was that, long story short, I was in a position at work where I was working PRN, which means in the field that I work in, it more means that you work when you're needed. So there were some weeks that I would work a lot of hours, like something up to full time, maybe even plus. And there were other weeks that I wouldn't work much at all. It just kind of depended on the availability that they had and how much they needed me to jump in as another person. And so working PRN means that you don't really ever know your schedule, but it does mean that there are going to be weeks you're kind of bored out of your mind sitting at the house waiting for a phone call, kind of a thing. And because of that, I really needed a creative outlet to occupy myself and to make me feel like I was still creating something valuable and being productive. And when I was so tired and fed up of not feeling like I was able to, you know, I was just frustrated with the fact that my schedule was so varied and not being able to get a full-time position at that time. So I decided to pour that energy instead into creating content on YouTube. So the dream that I'd had for a while of making YouTube videos in this, you know, of The Sims, this game that I love so much, really became a reality. And that was what kind of precipitated my transitioning into being a creator on YouTube. And I really don't think I regretted it ever since. There have been highs and lows, of course, even in just the past year, but I do just in general recommend that if you have that kind of an inclination, that you're really not going to lose much for just trying it out. And, you know, you'll know pretty soon whether it's something that you like or something that you don't. And so that's what kind of helped me make that jump into becoming a creator. So the next Q&A question came from King Jack, and the question was, do you have kids? If not, do you want any? And they also said congratulations on 1K. Thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. So I do not have kids. Wanting some, yes, eventually. I've been married for 4 years, and just over 4 years in February, and I really picture myself being a mom one of these days, but I don't really want to be a mom just yet. I really only graduated college it's coming up on 2 years ago now, and I got my license and I began working, and now, you know, I mentioned earlier, I started off with a PRN job. I now work completely full-time. It keeps me very, very busy. I feel like I almost barely have time to do things like YouTube in my spare time, which is very limited, but I really enjoy working, and I want to take the time to do that for at least a little while before my husband and I decide to start having kids, because when that time comes, I will probably transition from maybe like full-time to a part-time position instead of just remaining full-time. That way I can kind of like hang out with my kids and, you know, help raise my kids and all that kind of stuff. And so one of these days when I feel like I've at least put in a good few years in the workforce and, you know, we get to a place where we feel like that's something we want to pursue, then yeah, that's what we'll probably be doing. But so yes, do want kids, don't have any at the moment. Okay, the next Q&A question came from Simmer San, and they actually put in a couple of questions. I just really appreciate you just throwing a couple of questions my way, because it's always a lot of fun. One of the questions was asked by somebody else as well, so I'm gonna find that question really quickly so I can kind of answer you guys both at the same time. Okay, so the other question came from Sophia Caponen. Again, sorry about the users if that's not correct, but they asked two very similar questions between Simmer San and then the other user, and that is, what expansion, game pack, and stuff pack are your favorites? And the other one was worded as, if you could only have one expansion, one game pack, one stuff pack. For me, expansion is probably Seasons, followed very closely by City Living, which I know it's a bit of an older expansion, but it is such a good one for the fact that we have a completely different world than, say, in My Shuno. Seasons is awesome because it allows us to, again, have seasons in every world, even though it didn't come with a world itself. So I feel like in my mind, if you just had, you know, the base game and seasons, you would have so much in the way of gameplay opportunities that would be completely valuable. Game pack for me would probably be, I would say Parenthood, because I'm so family oriented in my gameplay, and I know that without that, actually I remember playing The Sims without that, and family gameplay felt really kind of hollow, and Parenthood really added a new dimension to that I enjoy a whole lot. Obviously the new pack Strangerville is really cool because it comes with a world, and it's a pretty decent sized world and all that kind of stuff, but really when it comes down to pass, build, buy, and gameplay elements, Parenthood is the way to go in my mind. Definitely my favorite of the game packs. For stuff packs, it's a little bit more difficult because they're super niche, and I hate that I'm giving somewhat cliche answers here too, because I've heard a lot of other people give these types of answers, but Laundry Day stuff is honestly one of my more favorite of the stuff packs. I also really love movie hangout stuff. I know I'm not giving one answer for each of these, which I kind of hate, but you know, if I had to choose between like a couple, those would be the ones I'd pull from, because you have a nice mix of gameplay elements with cast and build buy that I really enjoy and find myself reaching for a lot when it comes to building, and again, gameplay elements that I really feel like I'd be missing out on if I didn't have them. And so those are just my opinions when it comes to game packs, expansions, and stuff packs that are my favorites. Another question that SimmerStan asked was, who is your favorite townie? Okay, favorite townie, probably Caleb Vitor. Some of you guys who've been around for a while will be not at all surprised to hear that. I love Caleb Vitor. He's a vampire that came with a Vampires game pack. I think he's very cute, and I've incorporated him into many of my current households, and he makes good babies. Just gonna throw that out there, guys. I know a lot of people don't like him because he's a vampire, but he's one of my favorites for sure. Who is the townie that you dislike the most? Gosh, I don't really think about it very much. I really don't hate Eliza Pancakes as much as some people do, to be honest with you. I probably tend to dislike Nancy Landgrab the most because I don't know, she and Jeffrey are probably just about equally as like snobby and kind of rich people and disowning their son type of people, but she is evil, and I know she's in the criminal career, and she's just kind of a mess. Like, she's just always rocking up when my Sims are having events and just like walking by their houses, and she always just looks so rude and not nice and not friendly and open and kind, and I really don't like her for that reason. And again, because she disowned her own son, you know, it's like, why would you do that? She's probably definitely one of my least favorites of the townies. And she says, and lastly, unrelated to Sims 4, what is your favorite book, TV show, or movie? Okay, so I legitimately had to pause my recording and think about this question for a second. I'm gonna give you one in each category, even though you said or. So book would probably be Sherlock Holmes. I know that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote many Sherlock Holmes, but I have like the collected volume. It's actually almost within reach of where I'm standing right now, and I do find myself reading that again over and over. I've read it so many times ever since I first found it when I was, I don't know, I was probably like in elementary school the first time I read those books. So you guys have not read the Sherlock Holmes mystery series by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, hands down recommend. Such a good book series, so good. TV show, probably the TV show Bones. I have yet to watch it again all the way through the second time, but I learned so much from that show when I was going through school and, you know, learning about anatomy and all that kind of stuff, and it's just fascinating and has a really good plot line. And I love shows that are both full of mystery and intrigue and story as well as intellectual, and I think that that show is a good balance of all those factors for me. And then movie right now is definitely The Greatest Showman. I love that movie so much. I'm not really massively a fan of musicals, and that movie very much is a musical, but I love it so much, and I find myself singing the songs a lot. I actually own the soundtrack and listen to it like to and from work and things like that, so it's such a favorite of mine when it comes to movies, so I would definitely have to say that. So my friend Emily, or Emmy Sims, also commented and had a question for me, and she says, a question for you to answer: what sim traits would you give yourself? For me, I would probably give myself something similar to what I gave my sim self back in the very first video I ever put on the channel. I think that two that I remember for sure were athletic and perfectionist. Very much the case for me in both. I've been that way a long time, both. The third trait would be probably the one that would vary somewhat greatly. On some days I would say hot-headed, on other days I would say outgoing. It just kind of depends on my mood, to be honest with you. I feel like that third trait for me is somewhat variable, and if we had 5 traits in The Sims like we did in The Sims 3, I would be able to better explain myself there, but I would say that athletic and perfectionist would be 2 of my constants, with the third one kind of being a little bit on the variable side of things. Okay, on to the next question. It came from Musina Khan, and they asked, what is your favorite career and aspiration to play with The Sims 4? And she mentions that, you know, we all have that particular one that we keep coming back to, and that is definitely the case for me. When it comes to career, I would probably say the astronaut career, which is kind of weird and off the cuff, but I do find myself gravitating toward that a lot when it comes to my current households. Even if it's been a while since I've played it, if I start up a new current household that's just story-based, I'm almost always like, astronaut sounds pretty good. Either that or doctor. It's between one of the two. If it depends on if I'm feeling like an active career or not. When it comes to aspiration, I would say definitely the musical genius aspiration, because I like a lot of my Sims to be musical, even if they're not in the entertainer career. And so that's a really common one for me to reach for, if that makes sense. So definitely to one of my career favorites and one of my aspiration favorites as well. Okay, this next question came from Zariah A, and they asked, have you played any other games in the Sims franchise? You know, i.e. Sims 1, 2, or 3, and if you have, what is your favorite thing in each? Or what do you miss most about the older games? So I've played Sims 2 and Sims 3, never played the OG Sims games, so I've played 2, 3, and 4 to date. I'd be okay with the idea to play, you know, Sims 1, but I don't really know of a lot of people who have access to it anymore. But when it comes to Sims 2 and 3 and what I miss about them in relation to the newest game, Sims 3 was my OG. Like, that was the game I started playing in this franchise, the very first, even though at the time Sims 4 was out already. And I remember coming into the Sims 4 and feeling like it was very empty compared to the Sims 3, but that's almost an unfair comparison because Sims 3 is a complete game, as well as Sims 2, of course, and Sims 4 is not yet. So a couple of my favorite things to play in 2 and 3 are the things that we're still missing in 4. So up until here recently, it was the fact that we could do seasons in those other two games. Now, obviously that's not the case because we have it in 4. University is another really big one that I like to play over and over and over again when I go to those other games. And then there are other little things like the variety that we have in exercise equipment and the skills and the career options. And it feels like Sims 3 is so rich in the career choices that you have. In fact, the same thing goes for Sims 2. I still don't even fully know how many careers are available in Sims 2. I feel like every time I get into that game, I'm finding out a new one, and I'm so excited because they're all so unique, like Dancer. You know, we don't have anything like that in the Sims 4, really. And it's those types of things that really enhance the ability to tell a different story every time you open up your game that make me wish we had those things in The Sims 4, or hope that we will one of these days at least. Okay, so on again to Sophia Caponen's questions, and I already mentioned, well, the first question that they mentioned here is if you could have only one expansion, game, or stuff pack in your game, which packs would you choose? Which I already did go over, and I mentioned this comment as I did that, but they ask another question, and it is, would you be interested in renovating houses that your subscribers have built? And to be completely honest with you, I've never really thought about it like that. I know other people do that, but it's never really crossed my mind. I guess that the thing that would prevent me from that would be like actual interest in that from other people. I mean, you guys can tell me if that's something that you would like to see. I wouldn't mind. The problem is right now, I'm kind of just doing one speed build a week because, like, logistically speaking, that's all I really have time to prepare as my current schedule stands. I was even attempting there for a while to do 2 and 3 uploads a week. Right now, guys, 1 is all I can manage, and a big part of me wants that to be a unique speed build that I create for you guys versus a renovation. Now, perhaps if I was uploading more than 1 video a week, then one of those could be a renovation, but that would be really the only thing that would keep me from that right now. But as far as interest goes, I would have an interest in that, and I would like to hear what you guys think about that as well. Okay, so on to another question from Lorene Stamba, and the question is, besides the base game, if you could only have 1 pack in your game, which would it be? And so I think I kind of touched on this earlier and it's, by the way, like, I'm sorry if I'm saying that whole, oh, I kind of touched on this earlier, and you guys are like, well, I just asked this question because you asked for a question. I didn't know that other people were gonna ask similar questions, you know? It's fine. To reiterate kind of what I touched on a little bit earlier, it would be that if I could only add a single pack, it would definitely have to be an expansion, because then you're getting the most when it comes to gameplay, cast, and build by value. You also have the potential for another world there, but to be honest with you, I would probably say seasons, like I was saying earlier. I think that if you're talking about just the base game, then you have some worlds already at your disposal. You have 3, Willow Creek, Oasis Springs, and New Crest, and Seasons adds so much to those pre-existing worlds as well as the build buy, as well as the gameplay value, I feel like that would make your simming experience so rich and full, just that pack alone. So I would definitely say seasons in that case. Oh my gosh, guys, I feel like I'm running out of time with these questions. I'm sorry. Okay, so Reagan Jane Smith had the next question, and it was, what are 5 sim tips you could give us that are personal to your gameplay? And so these might not necessarily be 5, and they also mentioned that I can interpret that however I want. So like, it's not a specific, it's more of an open-ended question. The way that I play, and these aren't necessarily completely unique to me, this is just how I play, since that's the question. I would say just make sure to give your Sims a story, because if your Sims are coming from nothing and you're just trying to grind away and there's not really a background, the way that I combat boring gameplay in my Sims and feeling bored and fed up with my Sims and the saves is that I give my Sims a working story. I have plans for them. I'm currently acting out parts of a story. It's all tied together in a thread, and you just kind of go from one plot point to the other. And I really only about have room for that for like in one family of mine. So the next thing I do right now, at least that's personal to my gameplay, is I'm only really playing one family. Because I feel like if I was trying to do that with too many families, I would really kind of get overwhelmed. I actually felt that way not too long ago, actually, when I was trying to finish up Not So Berry, and I was playing the Taylor family with my Family Dynamics challenge, and then I was playing a couple of current households and sharing them on Tumblr, and it just got to be a lot, you know? It was a lot of stuff that I was trying to juggle and, you know, really make personal to me. And so for me right now, playing just one family is the way that I combat that boringness when it comes to playing my own saves. My other tip is to really fill out your family's calendar. That way, I mean, depending on whether or not you care about the seasons in the game and the holidays in the game, having those things that my Sims can look forward to that break up the everyday monotony is really what makes the gameplay rich and special, at least in my mind. And so those are just a couple of things. It's not really 5 per se, but those are some of the major points I would hit on that came to like how I play my game and how things that are unique to my game personally, at least in my mind, and that I could share with you guys as far as that goes. Okay, I think we're on to the last question from the comments in my last video, but the question is from Nani Simmer, and it says, will you ever do a recorded LP versus current household updates? Were you always a builder, and do you like playing The Sims or building better? So, will I ever do recorded LP versus current household updates? So I've done that in the past. I actually had the Family Dynamics Challenge going for a while. I've also done Big Sister and also finished that too. I also had a Sims 3 Let's Play way back in the day that I'm not even playing anymore. But I have done LPs in the past. Right now, the reason I don't have them is that, again, really can only make time in the schedule for one video a week, and I prefer that to be a speed build right now. And LPs take so much time and energy to produce, at least for me. The way I like to put out LPs with a covers a lot of gameplay, heavily edited down style, that is not really conducive to like good time management for me. So will I ever? I don't know, but just not right now is kind of how it looks on the channel. And I have not always been a builder, but I've been a builder for a while. I do like playing The Sims better than I like building, but there are a lot of times I have just massive spurts of inspiration to build and I don't want to play, I just want to build. And I usually try to take advantage of that when I can, but I definitely haven't always been building. It is something that I've been doing for a long time, especially since I've kind of been trying to use my own houses for the Sim families that I play. And that has really helped a lot, by the way, when it comes to, you know, the level of building that I feel like I've grown over time. I think that that's gotten better because I've challenged myself to build for my own Sim families, and that has kind of allowed for a lot of diversity as well. Okay, so sorry, by the way, if you commented and I was just such a dingbat and missed a comment or something, missed a question. If that's the case, you know, feel free to leave a comment on this video and let me know, and I'll throw it in for the next one or whatever. But that is the Q&A from the YouTube comments. I also mentioned I have a comment to answer from over on Tumblr, which I'm gonna try to get to really quickly, even though it's probably gonna be kind of a long story, but it says Q&A, how long have you been married and what's the story of your relationship? And that came from an Anon on Tumblr, by the way, so no user to shout out there. But I think I also mentioned this earlier too, but I have been married for just over 4 years, and the story of my relationship is that I didn't like my husband when I first met him, and he really didn't care for me very much either. Not in really an aggressive way, but in a, I definitely was not one of these cliche love at first sight type situations. I actually don't even really remember the first time we met because it was so nonchalant. I was actually dating somebody somebody else at the time. I think he was as well. So I didn't really like mark in my mind the first time I ever saw my husband. And the details, especially at the very beginning, are kind of fuzzy due to that, but I do know that we met at a camp in the summer, and that not too long after that, I actually began working for his parents at a retail store, and that was totally by accident. I didn't really even hardly know him at the time. I just was working for his parents, and he was also working at that store on occasion. And so as a result of having the chance to work together, we definitely had a lot of time to talk and get to know each other, and that kind of blossomed into a really amazing friendship that very quickly from there turned into the love that we now have together today. And we dated for, oh gosh, I don't even know, at least, I would say at least 2 years, got engaged, and then have been married for 4, like I said, just over 4, 4 as of February, that is. And so that's a little condensed version of the story of my relationship. And guys, I don't even know where we are in the video right now, but I know we're way close to the end, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up right here. Thank you for staying and listening and submitting those comments with questions for me for this Q&A. I was kind of worried at the beginning I wouldn't have enough to carry me through, and yet here we are. But I just want to say thanks for submitting those questions. Thanks for listening to my rambling answers. And thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers here on the channel. Once again, I'm really excited about that. And I'm glad you guys are as well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the build. The details to download in the description down below. And I hope you're having the best of days, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.